Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. And today I am finally getting around to reviewing Empire Anatomy, the debut album from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania-based melodic thrash metal slash death metal band Dissentience. So, this album was independently released on February 11th. So it's definitely been at least a month old. 2 weeks ago, I had received this in the mail, thanks to, of course, my friend, of course, Paul of Soul Grinder Zine, who obviously sent this to have me review on the channel because they were on one of the Soul Grinder Zine compilations, which I got on cassette because I reviewed it back in 2020 when I first received it on cassette. And of course, he sent me in that package the CD copy of that one anyways. But that was 2 weeks ago. I was going to review this one at least a week ago. However, there was some unfortunate things that happened within my personal life that at least some of you know about anyways. So I'm not going to go into any detail of what happened. But again, it just put me in at least not a very good frame of mind that week. So I needed at least a week off. But here I am back. And so it's time to finally get into my overall review of Empire Anatomy, the debut full-length album from Dissentience. So let's get into it. Alright, so before I really get to any of my overall thoughts on this particular album from Dissentience, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks where the songs are on this album, how many songs are on this album, and what's the time length for this album. And since we have at least about 10 songs here, it all clocks in at the length of 39 minutes and 22 seconds. So these 10 songs are beginning with War Belief, Ubaste, which is actually Japanese for abandoned, Clinical Psychosis, The End, parentheses, and all between, Lost in Rage, Cabal, Pursuit of Delusion, Darkness Perennial, The Beast Beneath, and then finally ending with Reckoning Day. So there's your 10 songs. So, since you probably are all kind of wondering who are Dissentience, well, these guys were formed back in 2010 under the original name of Why We Fight, but in 2013 they changed it to Dissentience, which is actually the Catalan language for the word dissent, which is something I just found out today, because when I first had received this CD in the mail, I had a hard time trying to pronounce this name because I didn't know what it was, what it really meant. I mean, I kind of knew, but it just said what was the best way to pronounce it, since I'm not all of that well versed in languages and everything other than their more obvious languages. So when I found out, especially running it through the Google Translate, I was surprised what came up. So I hope that's at least as correct there. But apparently it's pronounced Dissentience. So very interesting. And again, they could have just named themselves Dissent. But I do give them at least a little bit of credit for going something a little bit different there. So very cool. Alright, so again, in 2014 they released their debut demo. Then in 2018 they released their EP, Mask of Pretense, and then finally in 2021 they released one of their very first singles for their upcoming debut full-length album here, which was War of Belief. Then in the same year they released their final single for it, which was Clinical Psychosis. And then this year they had released, prior to this full-length album, they came out with, well, The Beast Beneath. So finally, here we are with their debut album, which came out in February 11th. So again, these guys are definitely, you can tell there's at least a death metal influence on this album, but really, this really does come across at times way more in line with, again, the more sort of very melodic, it's still very aggressive, but very progressive form of thrash metal. That you can compare it to bands like, for example, maybe Warbringer and Vindicator, but also even at times Voivod, and especially even the other band that was trying to be a lot like Voivod, that being Vector, which again they took the influences of Voivod, but really went further and expanded on that, and where it really was a lot more aggressive in ways, and that's where I think a band like Dissentience really kind of comes in here, is like they took some of their, again, maybe human era death, but combined it with something like the, again, sort of Voivod or Vector, and of course combining with him the more aggressive forms of modern day thrash metal with the likes of Vindicator and Warbringer, and just combining it together, and that's where we get this, because songs like War of Belief, Clinical Psychosis, Ubaste, or Ubaste, I think is the best way, again, I hope I'm pronouncing all that again, because I keep putting this fucking word through Google Translate, and it comes out the way it's supposed to be pronounced, but then I end up forgetting. So it's unbelievable. So Abaste, and of course, you know, and even for example, even other songs like Reckoning Day, yes, there's a clear sort of thrashy feel to it, or even like Pursuit of Delusion, for example, too. But when you got other songs, for example, like The End, parentheses, All Between, Cabal, and Darkness Perennial, there's definitely a clear death metal influence on these songs for sure. There's a lot of that going on. And I think the song Cabal comes across as a more straight up pure form of death metal songs on the album. But then you got, again, other songs like Darkness Perennial, and of course The End and All Between, which are definitely more slow. I wouldn't say mid-pace, but they really play along with the more technical styles of death metal with these. Again, Human Era Death might come in, at least in mind here. But again, I mean, of course, again, when the sound really kicks off with 3 wall bangers, it does come across as, again, when you're kind of then coming into a song like The End and All Between, which again is just kind of changes up a little bit. This is where it starts to get really interesting for the album, where the pacing starts to change here and there. But again, everything about the sound to me is just fucking perfect, to be honest. This is really one of the most solid thrash albums I've heard all year. I've heard so far, at least this year. Not all year, but so far this year that I've heard. Just everything about this one is great. Again, it's definitely aggressive, but it's got some flavor going on to this one. It's got some personality flowing through it. Everything about it just sounds so strong and solid. And again, I admire the writing and the musicianship, and of course the overall, just the competence of every member here. Everything just sounds great. Even to the production, the mixing's great here. And again, to really kind of bring up Connor Vlenton, he definitely has a harsh style of vocal sound. I mean, here and there, especially on songs like maybe, of course, The End All, again, parentheses, and All Between, and of course, Cabal, he does really play around with more death metal style vocals. But for the most part, he does his harsh style, thrashy vocals really tend to work a lot with the sort of the style that they are really playing on this album right here, and it's all fucking great. There's nothing here that I think is any flaw to begin with. Everything just sounds great. This really would have been a great release for any major label, for example, like Century Media, at least the great days of Century Media. This is just so perfectly put together in a way to me, and I love it. I remember there's one of the songs that they added that was added onto one of the Soul Grinder zine comps. But this full-length album is where you show that they're starting to head in even more of a more mature direction, and I can see them on subsequent releases where they can really expand on this style and everything. They can expand on what they got going. Again, there's just nothing bad here to begin with. Everyone is in top form on this album, and it comes across as great. So everything is great. Again, as far as favorites here, again, War of Belief, Clinical Psychosis, Pursuit of Delusion, Ubaste, and of course Reckoning Day. All these are pretty much my absolute favorites off the album, but really there's not a bad song on here. Everything's good. So I gotta thank to, of course, Paul of Soul Grinder Scene for sending this to me to really listen to and really review, because I think that this band just made themselves a new fan. So there we go. So that's it, folks. There's my overall thoughts on Empire Anatomy from Dissentience. And my overall rating is a 9.90 out of 10. This is a solid, put-together thrash metal album. And I think I recommend it. And if you want to check this album out or even buy this album, again, I'm going to leave you a link to the Bandcamp page where you can buy this album and, of course, listen to it. So there we go. I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrash saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.